Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good whatever time of the day you are listening to this, and you are welcome to another wonderful episode of the award-winning podcast, Volatile Times with Daniel. And of course, I am Daniel Briggs Adisa, your jolly, good, ever-loving, wise host. Today's episode is gonna be a little bit different. This is our Valentine's special. I am releasing this for all of us single people, but not just single people out there who do not have a Valentine and who are going to be feeling lonely, and those who just generally feel lonely in their life. And this particular episode is created using AI. Let me give you a brief of it. I used Google's NotebookLM to generate this episode. I fed it a bunch of my essays. Some of them are published on Cabinet of Introspection on my Substack. You can find the link for it below. And some of them are unpublished, slightly unfinished, or maybe I was just embarrassed to publish them. I put it together, did a little bit of prompting, did a little bit of, tushing, added some sauce. And it came out better than I thought it would. And, I made this last year, but I thought, what better time to share it than now, especially given the climate that we are in. So if this is your first time listening, you are in for a treat. And if you are a return listener, I love you so much. I love you so much. It's been hard to get people back in here because I've been gone a long time. But hey, I love you a lot. Do not forget to share. Do not forget to subscribe. And if you're on Spotify, comment what you think about the episode. How did the AI do? Or just about the content generally in the comments below when you're done. And without wasting too much of your time any longer, here it is.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at something that I think is pretty universal, and that is the world of love and friendship, and kind of how these two powerful forces work together in our lives.
Yeah, it's a topic that, everyone has some experience with, but it's surprisingly complex
Right?
when you start to really get into it.
Yeah, and we have some really fascinating sources to kind of dig into with this. We have some personal essays that really kind of challenge some assumptions about these bonds.
Yeah.
And then we also have a really heartwarming story about the ripple effect of friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a really unique birthday letter.
Okay.
And then even some poetic reflections on love.
Interesting. So our mission today is to go beyond just like the dictionary definitions of what is love and what is friendship.
Yeah.
And to really look at the gray areas where these categories kind of start to blur and overlap.
Yeah. And maybe even redefine our expectations.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this first essay, Friends Are Not Enough, really just throws down the gauntlet right in the title. The author argues that friends, no matter how close, can't really fully satisfy our deepest human needs the way that a romantic partner can.
It's a bold claim.
Yeah.
But I think the essayist makes some interesting points about the kind of unique intimacy and shared life experience that we often find in romantic relationships.
Right. And for example, they talk about the longing to have a partner by your side, to kind of face those life challenges and to build a future together and to kind of face the unknown as a team.
Right. And, friendships, by their very nature, they have limits, right?
Yeah.
Friends have their own lives, their own partners and families, their own priorities.
That's true. You can't always expect friends to be available at a moment's notice.
Right. And especially as we get older, right?
Yeah.
Things just get more complicated.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What about the idea of chosen families?
Mm-hmm.
Are there those deep, enduring friendships that really can provide that same level of support and companionship?
I think so. I think absolutely. And the essayist kind of acknowledges this, but suggests that maybe those really profoundly fulfilling friendships are the exception and not the rule.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And, I think this kind of ties into something that the essay touches on that I thought was really fascinating.
Okay.
Which is the rising rates of loneliness in our society.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder if our societal emphasis on romantic love as like the ultimate source of happiness might actually be contributing to this kind of isolation.
That's a great point. And I wonder, is it possible that by putting romantic relationships on a pedestal above all else, maybe we're accidentally devaluing other types of connection, like friendship?
Right, exactly. Okay, so this second essay, This Is Not Love, tackles a question that really made me pause.
Okay.
Which is, can you truly love someone you don't like?
Oh, that's a good one.
Right.
That's a really good question.
Yeah, this essay takes a critical look at this love as an action framework
Mm-hmm.
and kind of points out that Just doing good deeds for someone doesn't necessarily equal genuine affection. And in fact, it can sometimes mask some deeper issues,
Right.
like manipulation or even abuse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the author gives some really unsettling examples of how this can play out in different types of relationships, from romantic partnerships to parent-child dynamics to even friendships.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, they talk about how, like, a parent might shower their child with gifts and material possessions,
Okay.
but fail to give them that emotional support and validation that they really need.
Right.
Right? Or how a friend might constantly offer to help you with practical tasks, but never actually, like, listen to you.
Yeah.
Or offer emotional support when you're struggling.
So it's almost like you're going through the motions,
Yeah.
but the feeling isn't really there.
Right. Exactly. And it kind of makes you realize that actions, while important, can't be the only measure of love.
Right. Right.
There has to be that genuine emotional connection there, that
Mhm.
sense of mutual respect and affection.
Exactly. And this essay is really making us think about, does the absence of like somehow make love less authentic or less valuable?
Right.
And I think that's a hard question to answer.
Yeah, it's a really complex question with no easy answers, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so now for something completely different. Let's talk about this heartwarming story about a wedding that basically became this giant reunion of close friends, and it was all orchestrated by this incredible guy named Fayan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And this anecdote really beautifully illustrates the ripple effect of strong friendships.
Yeah.
How one person can be a catalyst for connection and belonging.
I love that.
Yeah, and it's like his warm personality and genuine care for others created this magnetic field
Okay.
that just drew people in and fostered these really lasting bonds.
And it's so inspiring because it wasn't just about showing up for the wedding itself, right? It was about making time for each other in life.
Exactly.
Making time for those connections, even though everyone is busy.
Yeah, and I love how the author describes Fayan as the glue that bound us together.
Oh.
Like he was this central force holding this whole diverse group of friends in orbit.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
It's a powerful image.
Yeah.
Okay, now get ready for something truly special.
Okay.
We have a birthday letter here that is so much more than just a birthday greeting.
Okay.
It's from someone named Hugh to his dear friend Juke.
Okay.
And this letter is practically overflowing with warmth and affection.
Oh.
It reads almost like a love letter to their friendship.
Interesting.
And here's where it gets really fascinating. As Hugh starts to delve into these deeper emotions, he switches from English to Catalan.
Wow.
It's like he's unlocking a whole new level of emotional expression
Right.
by tapping into this other language.
That holds special significance for them.
Yes, exactly. And there are some really tender phrases in here like, "It's la nineta dels meus ulls," which means, "You are the apple of my eye" in Catalan.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
And, it's clear that this friendship is incredibly meaningful to both of them. Hyuk goes beyond just celebrating Jiok's birthday. He celebrates like his very being, highlighting his qualities, his ability to bring people together, his capacity for love.
It sounds like a really deep connection.
Oh, absolutely. And there are these beautiful affirmations sprinkled throughout the letter, like, you are loved, you are wanted, you are desired. It's almost like a mantra, reinforcing the strength and importance of their bond.
Yeah.
Reading this letter, it really makes you rethink those kind of rigid categories of platonic and romantic love.
Right.
It feels like this friendship embodies elements of both.
It really makes you wonder, are those labels even necessary or helpful when we're talking about these deep, meaningful connections?
Yeah.
Maybe it's really just about the quality of the bond,
Yeah.
the genuine affection, regardless of how we label it.
That's a really powerful insight, and it leads us perfectly into our next source.
Okay.
We're ready to dive into some poetry. This poem, Falling in Love, captures all the complexities and contradictions of love in a way that's both beautiful and unsettling.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, the poet doesn't shy away from that darker side of love. The potential for pain and heartbreak.
Sure.
And even self-destruction. But there's also this sense of awe and wonder.
Yeah.
A recognition of love's transformative power.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's this one line that really stood out to me. It's like meeting God.
Wow.
Terrifying in majesty, yet undeniably beckoning.
It's powerful imagery.
Right.
Yeah.
It really captures that feeling of being completely overwhelmed by love, both the good and the bad.
Yeah, and it makes you think, Can you experience those same intense feelings, that sense of surrender and awe? Can you experience that in really profound friendships,
Right.
even if they don't fit our traditional idea of romantic love?
Right. And, as we're talking about these different forms of love,
Yeah.
I keep thinking back to that first essay, Friends Are Not Enough. And the author's experience with loneliness. It's a
Yeah.
feeling that I think so many of us can relate to, that yearning for a deep, abiding connection,
Yeah.
for someone to share life's joys and sorrows with.
Absolutely.
And the author describes this almost paradoxical feeling of being happy for their coupled up friends
Right.
while simultaneously wrestling with this envy and a sense of loss.
I can see that.
Yeah. And they even bring up this idea that married people tend to be better friends with other married people
Okay.
because they're in the same stage of life.
Right. They just get it.
Yeah. They just get, and it's not to say that friendships can't endure across different life stages,
Sure.
but there's just that shared understanding and experience that comes with navigating coupledom
Right.
and maybe parenthood that can create a particularly strong bond.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah.
the author suggests that, this experience of being the single friend can even lead to feelings of resentment.
Oh, wow.
Not because you're not happy for your friends, but because you long for that same kind of deep connection in your own life.
Cool. Yeah, it makes sense.
Right. It brings us back to Hyuk's letter to Hyuk, where he talks about Hyuk's ability to create space for others, to foster those connections.
Right.
And maybe that's the key to kind of combating loneliness, both our own and the loneliness we see in others, is creating that space where people feel seen and valued and loved for who they are.
It's a beautiful thought,
Yeah.
and it suggests that we all have that power within us, to be that person for others,
Yeah.
to create those spaces where people feel like they belong.
And speaking of creating that space for others,
Yeah.
it makes me think about that poem, Falling in Love.
Uh-huh.
We talked about those really intense emotions that it describes,
Right.
but I'm also really struck by how the poet uses language to kind of evoke those feelings.
Yeah, it's so evocative, right? They describe love as a river of violent emotion,
Wow. Yeah.
as the damning beauty of Aphrodite, as a deep abyss with ever-gazing eyes. It's powerful stuff. Yeah, it really is. And the language itself becomes like a reflection of that whole experience of falling in love.
Right.
Messy, contradictory, full of mystery.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of Hyuk's letter to Jiuk, specifically how he uses Catalan to express those deeper emotions.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like he's tapping into a whole new vocabulary of love and affection.
Right.
One that really resonates with their shared cultural background.
Exactly. Like certain feelings can only be fully expressed in a language that has that specific weight,
Yeah.
like a shared understanding.
It makes you wonder if we can all be more intentional about the language we use to express our feelings,
Totally.
whether it's, through poetry or letters or even just everyday conversations.
Absolutely. And how can we use language to more fully convey the love and appreciation that we have for the people in our lives?
Mm-hmm.
And, it doesn't have to be grand gestures
Yeah.
or, flowery prose.
Right.
Sometimes the simplest words spoken with sincerity can have the biggest impact.
I love that. And it reminds me of that moment in The Wedding Story where the author is describing that bond with Fionn over something as simple as Golden Morn cereal.
Oh,
Right? Like a seemingly insignificant detail
Yeah.
that ended up marking the beginning of this really profound friendship.
Yeah, exactly. It's a reminder that, love and connection can spark in the most unexpected places.
Yeah.
And those really deep bonds sometimes start with the simplest shared experiences.
Okay, so I have to mention one more thing about Hyuk's letter before we move on.
Okay.
It is filled with emojis.
Oh, wow.
Hearts, balloons.
Yeah.
Even a party popper.
So he went all out.
He did. And I know some people might see emojis as kind of frivolous,
Right.
but I actually think they add another layer of meaning to his message.
I agree. I think in this digital world that we live in,
Yeah.
emojis have become a legitimate form of expression.
Totally.
They add nuance and tone to our communication.
Yeah.
And in this case, they really do amplify that warmth and affection that Hyuk feels for Jiak.
And it's like those emojis give us permission to be more expressive, to embrace those outward displays of affection, even in written form.
It's like we're breaking free from those old ideas that, emotions should be held back
Right.
or expressed in a certain way.
Yeah.
Why not use every tool that we have, including emojis, to communicate the love and joy we feel?
Okay, speaking of joy, that wedding anecdote is such a beautiful example of how one person's warmth and generosity can really create a ripple effect
Yeah.
of connection and happiness.
It's like fine became a central force, right? Bringing people together, fostering a sense of belonging.
And it's a reminder that we can all be that person for others.
Yes.
You know, to create those spaces where people feel seen,
Yeah.
valued, and loved.
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder if that's the key to combating loneliness, both our own and, the loneliness that we see in the world around us, is creating those spaces where people feel comfortable being themselves and where they can really connect with others on a deeper level.
It's a beautiful vision.
Yeah.
And it suggests that, genuine connection isn't just about romantic relationships.
Right.
It's about those bonds with friends and family
Yeah.
and even strangers,
Right.
recognizing that shared humanity that connects us all.
But going back to the essay, This Is Not Love, I found myself reflecting on the idea of the bare minimum in relationships.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Right.
It really makes you think.
It does. It challenges us to really examine our own expectations and behaviors.
Yeah. Are we settling for the bare minimum
Right.
in our own relationships?
Right. Are we giving the bare minimum?
Are we striving for something more?
Exactly. And it really challenges us to think, are we showing up for the people in our lives in a way that goes beyond just fulfilling those obligations or meeting those basic needs?
Yeah. Are we really putting in the time, the energy, the emotional effort to cultivate those truly fulfilling relationships, where both people feel seen, heard, and appreciated?
Yeah. And it's so easy to get caught up in the busyness of life and forget to nurture those connections.
Oh, for sure.
That really matter.
It happens to the best of us.
It does. But as we've seen through all these different sources, love and friendship really do require effort and intentionality and a willingness to go beyond just that surface level.
It's about showing up, being present, expressing affection in those meaningful ways.
So as we kind of come to the end of our exploration of love and friendship, what is one key takeaway you would want our listeners to walk away with today?
That's a great question. I think the biggest takeaway for me is that love and friendship are not these fixed categories.
Right.
They can overlap, they can intersect, they can even defy those traditional definitions. I think what really matters is the depth of the connection, the genuine affection, the way that those bonds make our lives richer.
I love that that's beautifully said. And it reminds us that love in all its forms really does have the power to transform us.
Yeah.
And to connect us.
Absolutely.
And to make us feel truly alive.
Yeah.
As we've been talking about all these different aspects of love and friendship, I've noticed another theme that keeps coming up.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Acceptance.
Ah, that's interesting. I can see that.
Yeah, it seems to be woven through all these different sources that we've been looking at.
For sure.
Like in that wedding story, the author talks about learning to appreciate people for who they are, not as like art pieces to be understood, but to be appreciated.
I love that quote.
It's so good, right? It kind of takes the pressure off of like having to figure everything out about a person.
Right.
And allows us to just enjoy their presence.
Yeah, their quirks, their unique way of being.
Yeah. And it makes me think that embracing that kind of mindset could be key to forming those really deep connections.
Okay.
Both romantic and platonic. It's about letting go of that need to control or change someone.
Right. Yeah.
And just accepting them for who they truly are.
Yeah, it reminds me of something Hugh wrote in his letter to Yuke.
What's that?
He said, "You have no reason much longer to hide and diminish yourself."
Wow.
It's like he's giving him permission to be his full self,
Yeah.
Like step into your potential.
Yeah. Be your authentic self without apology.
Exactly.
That's such a gift to receive.
It is to have someone in your life who really sees you, accepts you, and encourages you to be your best self.
And it's a gift that we can all give to each other, right?
Absolutely.
To create those safe spaces where people feel free to express themselves and to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
To be their messy, imperfect selves.
I love that. And it makes me think about that line from the poem.
Which one?
A seeding of life with just a little bit of dying.
Oh, yeah. That's a powerful one.
Yeah. And maybe that's part of what it means to really connect with someone to let ourselves be seen, even the parts that we're not so proud of.
Yeah.
And to trust that we'll be accepted.
Right. Flaws and all of it.
Exactly.
It's kind of a scary thought in a way.
It is. It's a little daunting, right?
Yeah. To let go of those defenses.
Yeah.
And open ourselves up to the possibility of getting hurt. But as we've been talking about today, the rewards can be huge.
Yeah.
The joy of deep friendship, the comfort of shared experience,
For
the
sure.
power of love in all its forms.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
And it all starts with acceptance.
Okay.
Acceptance of ourselves, acceptance of others,
Right.
and acceptance of this whole kind of beautiful, messy tapestry of human connection.
I love that.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this world of love and friendship,
Yeah.
what's one lasting thought you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I would say remember that love and friendship aren't confined to these neat little boxes.
Right.
They can blend, they can overlap, they can transcend the labels that we try to put on them.
Yeah.
So I would just encourage everyone to, cultivate those bonds that bring you joy and meaning.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to express your affection.
And embrace the full spectrum of human connection.
That's a beautiful message to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the heart of human connection. And until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep loving.
And that is the episode. You heard that. Keep exploring, keep loving, keep thinking about relationships and friendships. People that know me know I am very big on friendship, even more so maybe over familiar relationships and romantic relationships and different things like that, because I think the one relationship you do regularly get to choose and build a lot throughout your entire life are your friendships. The one relationships that tend to have so much impact on your life and that even goes like unnoticed and goes unattended to or unexplored is friendship. So I hope this episode was very, very helpful. If it was, you can leave a comment on Spotify or you can share this on social media. Actually, please share this everywhere. Share this in your DM. Share this with somebody who you know struggles with loneliness. Share this with your best friend. Share it with your mom, your dad. Share it with everybody, okay? That is the action I want you to take right now. Share this episode with everybody, especially those that do not have a Valentine. And I will see you in the next one. Ciao. Bye-bye. Love you.